There are only 5 days until the Commanders need to submit their 53-man roster to the NFL. Who's going to make the team? Who's going to be left off? And why are my picks so controversial? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Full Command Show. My name is Grant Mitchell, and we are here to talk about everything involving the Washington Commanders. Now, I am recording this on Thursday morning, which means that the Commanders' final preseason game against the Ravens has not happened yet. There could be possible updates to who makes and who does not make my 53-man roster, but with so much movement, with so much drama and controversy with Terry McLaurin and Brandon Coleman's injury and Sam Cosmi's rehabilitation and Brian Robinson's trader release, I thought that it would be cool to give a little snapshot of where I believe the 53-man roster is going into that final preseason game. We're also going to talk about players that I believe are on the bubble, so who is really, truly competing for one of the final roster spots in that game against the Ravens out there in Landover, Maryland. So we're going to jump into all of that. But before we do, guys, I just want to say the reception on the channel recently has been absolutely amazing. If you're a new subscriber, thank you. Thank you for joining the community. Welcome. If you are a returning subscriber, a longtime viewer, you guys have helped me get up and running from the ground. So really appreciate you as well. And if you want to support me, you want to support the content, the Commanders, the easiest way to do that is by pressing the like button. So let's go ahead and let's jump in and let's talk about my picks to make the final 53-man roster, really the first 53-man roster, because it can change week to week at any given point. Quarterback, the number one spot on the roster. I'm only keeping two. Jayden Daniels, Marcus Mariota. Josh Johnson, Sam Hartman, I got them off the team. And I know some people are probably saying, hey, that's crazy. You got to have at least three quarterbacks, right? If Jayden Daniels and Marcus Mariota go down, the team is screwed. It doesn't matter if you have Kirk Cousins as a $25 million a year backup. It doesn't matter if you have an undrafted free agent who is a rookie. It literally doesn't matter. The team's going to collapse. Now, could you at least attempt passes? Sure. Like if Jalen Lane is your emergency quarterback, he's probably not really throwing the ball. But do you want Josh Johnson throwing the ball? Do you want Sam Hartman throwing the ball with what you've seen from them in this preseason so far? No, probably not. And you can put both those guys on practice squad, call them up in a week-to-week basis if there is an emergency or if you feel there is a need. But to start the year with Jayden being healthy and with Marcus Mariota coming back from his injury, seems like he's going to be okay. I'm just keeping them too, and we'll elevate someone off practice squad as needed. The running back room, I got Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Chris Rodriguez Jr., Austin Eckler, and Jeremy McNichols. Feel like there should be no surprises here. When I had put out my first prediction 3 or 4 weeks ago, I had B-Rob on and I had McNichols off, but it's very clear that B-Rob will not be on the team. Joining him on the list of cuts, Kazmir Allen and Demetric Felton. The team has given Kaz basically every opportunity they can to make this roster. However, I've not personally seen enough. It could be different from what they're seeing in practice. Maybe there's a way he does work his way onto the team, but I currently do not have the space for him. The receiver room, and this is where it gets interesting. Terry McLaurin, I got him on the team. He's off of PUP, which means I assume he's going to be on the 53-man roster. Jalen Lane, Luke McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, and here we go. Ja'Cory Brooks, who I know a lot of people are excited by, myself included. And I have Tay Martin making the roster as a sixth receiver. This is going to be a minority opinion, and let me explain myself. I do not believe the Commanders are only going to keep 5 wide receivers, because if they do that, and if Terry's not playing in week 1, they are starting the year with 4 receivers. So I think they got to keep at least 6, which is really 5 with the whole Terry uncertainty up in the air. I think Noah Brown is going to start the year on PUP. And let's break down the definition of what PUP actually is. It stands for physically unable to perform. Noah Brown has not played in an NFL game since December 1st of last year. He did not practice for the rest of the season, did not play for the rest of the season. You get to the offseason, he gets injured during, was it minicamp? It was minicamp or training camp. I don't remember which one, but it was a while ago. And he hasn't been practicing since then. The definition of PUP is physically unable to perform. Noah Brown has not suggested that he's physically able to perform. Now, the downside of this is if you start the season on PUP, you can't play for at least the first 4 games. You cannot be elevated during that time. However, what reason do we have at this current moment to believe that Noah Brown's going to be available at any time in the future? I know that the Commanders do a great job of keeping their cards close to their chest. We didn't know Brandon Coleman was coming back until he was actually at practice yesterday, but there's been so little movement on the Noah Brown front and so much uncertainty, and it seems like he keeps having these weird internal injuries that I just have an opinion. I have a suspicion, okay? This is not based on reporting. This is my gut instinct. Noah Brown's not going to be ready to start the year. If he is ready, he's on the team. Tate Martin gets cut. It's that simple. Those two, they're going to swap places as soon as Noah Brown is healthy, but I do have the Commanders keeping 6 receivers. Tight end, I have them keeping Zach Ertz, John Bates, Ben Sinnott, and Colson Yankoff. And actually, I forgot to list the receiver cuts, so that would mean that Noah Brown starting the year on PUP, Michael Gallup gets cut, River Craycraft gets cut, Chris Moore, Jacoby Jones, and I think a couple others I'm missing. So for the tight ends, again, I'm keeping Ertz, Bates, Sinnott, and Yankoff. That means that Cole Turner and Lawrence Cager are being released. Yankoff is someone who's definitely on that bubble. However, he does have special teams contributions that can be made. So that's what's going to keep him on the roster for me. At the tackle spot, Josh Connerly Jr. and Laramie Tunsil are locks. Trent Scott, I think, should be effectively a lock because he is that number one swing tackle as a backup. And then I have them keeping George Fant, who they just signed. But he does provide important depth. And one thing that's really been apparent to me watching these Commanders preseason games, once the second half rolls around and the third, fourth string linemen are in, they look atrocious. They are getting bulldozed by everybody. Fant is a guy who has 73 career starts. He started 13 games for the Texans 2 seasons ago. He's a legitimate quality option. And when you consider the fact that Andrew Wiley was a tackle last year, but he's now transitioned over to guard, and Brandon Coleman might be starting the year injured. Again, he's back at practice, but will he be available for week 1? Who knows? Some of your tackle resources have almost been shifted over to guard, and that means that having a veteran like Fant does bring a valuable presence. So Bobby Hart, he's going to be the main one missing out on the roster spot there for the tackles. At guards, I've got Nick Allegretti, Brandon Coleman, Chris Paul, Andrew Wiley, and the big one, Sam Cosmi. I do have him making the 53-man roster instead of starting the year on PUP. Like I mentioned when I was talking about Noah Brown, if you start the year on PUP, you can't play for at least the first 4 games. Dan Quinn in his press conference on Wednesday said that Cosmi is on track to be practicing and in contention for week 1. Now, that doesn't mean that he has to play, but the fact that there's a possibility he's healthy enough to be in a full practice or even be playing means that they're not going to want to sit him for those first 4 games. So even if he only comes back in week 3, that's better than week 5. So I don't imagine they start him on PUP, and that means he does make the 53-man roster. Julian Good-Jones was a guard. He'd played some center in the preseason. He was actually released yesterday, so obviously he won't be making the team. Foster Sorrell also going to be missing out there, according to my picks. And then center, I only have them keeping Tyler Biadasz. Michael Dieter was on the team last year. He was really bad when he got the opportunity to play, and I've not been impressed by him in this preseason so far. And as we know, Nick Allegretti has been taking some reps at center. He can play emergency center in a need. So hopefully Biadasz is able to stay upright, and that's not necessary, but you do have that backup center in case of emergency. That would be 10 offensive linemen for the Commanders, which I believe is what they kept last year. It was either 9 or 10. And any more, just again, it seems excessive. 11 would be crazy. So Dieter, Hart, Sorrell, Good-Jones, they do not make the team. Defensive end / outside linebacker, basically anybody who's playing the edge, rushing the passer. Von Miller, Dietrich Wise, Jacob Martin, Dorrance Armstrong, and Cleveland Farrell. That means that my cuts are Jalen Holmes, Andre Jones Jr., TJ Magarayanga, whose name I still haven't figured out. And unfortunately, regrettably, the second cut of the 2024 draft class from Adam Peters and company, I got Javonte Jean-Baptiste, again, very unfortunately, missing the 53-man roster. Now, he battled some injuries last year, and I just want to pull up, see how many games he actually made it into. So he played 12 games last year. Dan Quinn has talked about he's looked faster and stronger throughout the offseason. He was a 7th-round pick of a year ago, which from a simple value perspective does make him a little more expendable when it comes to making the roster and cutting him versus keeping him. But here's the thing. If he makes this team, there's no way that he's making it over any of the 5 other players. Let me reread them. Von Miller, Dietrich Wise, Jacob Martin, Dorrance Armstrong, and Cleveland Farrell. I think Jacob Martin might have been the one in the most danger of missing the roster for Jean-Baptiste, but he was really good against the Bengals, and he's had a good camp by all accounts. Cleveland Farrell, someone else who's maybe in that mix, but you're still going to prefer Farrell, I think. And Jean-Baptiste as a sixth edge rusher, I just don't know how tenable that is. The Commanders kept, I want to say 4 or 5 end/outside linebackers last year. I think it was 5, matter of fact. But we're going to get into the competition at the defensive tackle and the linebacker spot. And at some point, you just run out of numbers. So I do have Jean-Baptiste on the bubble, and I'm going to circle back and talk about everyone who's on the bubble, but I have him missing the team for right now. At defensive tackle, I've got Javon Kinlaw, Daron Payne, Johnny Newton, and Eddie Goldman. Missing the team, I have Sheldon Day, Rick Barber, Carl Davis, and Norrell Pollard. At linebacker, I have the Commanders keeping Bobby Wagner, Frankie Louvu, Kane Madrano, who actually looks like he's worked his way up the depth chart, could be getting some serious snaps, Jordan McGee, and Duke Riley. I have them keeping. That means that Cam Arnold, Nick Bellore, and Ale Cajo all off the team. Again, I'm going to circle back to these guys in just a second. Quarterback on my roster, Noah Igbenogany, Marshawn Lattimore, Trey Amos, Mike Sainristil, Jonathan Jones. Cut, missed the roster, Bobby Price, Antonio Hamilton Sr., and Carlin Viggers. And let's go to safeties. I have Quan Martin, Jeremy Reeves, Will Harris, Percy Butler, and Tyler Owens on the team. Getting cut, I have Robert McDaniel, Ben Nickel, and Daryl Worley. And then your special teams are your special teams. Matt Gay, Tressway, and Tyler Ott all make the team as kicker, punter, long snapper. They do not really have any competition. So let me circle back to these defensive players who were on the bubble. So I already talked about Jean-Baptiste. With Sheldon Day, the Commanders kept 4 defensive tackles last year. Now, Sheldon Day proved to be a serviceable player last year. He's done a fine job in the preseason. He's a little on the undersized part of the size spectrum. He's 6'1", 285. For a defensive tackle, that's fairly small. He's also an older veteran. He started the year on practice squad last year, so I think the hope would be that you could retain him on practice squad and then elevate him as needed. However, there's a chance that he gets signed by another team because he did play all right last year. But with Kinlaw, Payne, and Newton, those guys they're written in stone. Eddie Goldman has been all right. I'm not going to say that he's been amazing, but he's been all right in the preseason so far. He was a free agent signing. He adds a ton of size. I don't think they're going to be looking to let him go. Other players on defense who are on the bubble, I have Duke Riley, Nick Bellore, Ale Cajo, Robert McDaniel, and Tyler Owens. So of all of those players who are on the bubble, I only have 2 making the roster, Duke Riley and Tyler Owens. Now, let me say this. That is not anywhere near a guarantee. Duke Riley was just signed, and DQ was talking about how he likes having a physical veteran presence in the room, but Ale Cajo has impressed as a rookie UDFA, and Nick Bellore is a 36-year-old who's got excellent special teams pedigree. Now, the downfall there is he doesn't really play any defense. So you're rostering a special teams specialist. And when you look around the roster, you've got Jeremy Reeves, who getting more defensive snaps this year, it seems, but is that special teams guy. Luke McCaffrey's been solid on special teams. Colson Yankoff can do special teams. Jeremy McNichols can do special teams. You've got other players who are willing to do that. One of those is also Tyler Owens. Now, this was a bit of a tiebreaker. I know the Commanders want to get Owens on the field on defense, legitimately on the field on defense, but with Jeremy Reeves' ascension in that right, it seems as if maybe he's going to have some of his opportunities eaten into. He has impressed in certain moments. He's been crashing downhill, playing the run pretty effectively, but there's definitely still concerns about how he's going to hold up in pass coverage. But his ability to play special teams, just be relentless, is a big reason why I have him making the roster. With that being said, would it shock me if Tyler Owens is off the team and Sheldon Day is on it? No. If Duke Riley's off the team and Sheldon Day's on it, or if Duke Riley's off and Nick Bellore makes the team, and once Bellore's on it and you've got a special teams expert or ace, then maybe that means you don't have a need for Owens and Sheldon Day comes on, or even Javonte Jean-Baptiste comes on. I don't know. I'm just saying there's a lot of movement, and it's really going to depend on what the Commanders coaches are seeing in practice and what their vision for the roster is. I have not mentioned Robert McDaniel and all of that, and I want to say that I think this is somebody who's definitely worthy of consideration for making this team. The problem is he's at a safety spot, which is loaded. Quan Martin and Percy Butler and Will Harris and Jeremy Reeves, all guys who are effectively guaranteed to make this roster, I feel like. And maybe the most intriguing athletic profile on the entire team is Tyler Owens. That's why they're giving him so many opportunities. And again, Owens was outstanding at teams last year. So McDaniel's trying to make a team at a spot that's already loaded with guys who do different things. You've got coverage guys, you've got downhill thumpers, you've got special teams players. McDaniel is kind of a jack of all trades, master of none at this point in his career. He's a UDFA out of Jackson State. I've talked about him before on the channel. He had 40-something tackles last year, 3 forced fumbles, 3.5 sacks, 3 interceptions, pass deflections. The guy was all over the place. He can get after the quarterback. He can play in coverage. He can drop down in the box. He can do it all. But can he do one particular area of that at such a high level that it warrants him getting on the field over some of these other players? I don't know. And personally, I think you would be okay storing him on the practice squad. I don't know that there's going to be enough league-wide interest for him to be pried away, but he's definitely someone who is on the bubble. So just to kind of reiterate here, all my players who I think could make it, I guess I don't want to keep using the phrase bubble, but players on the bubble. Josh Johnson's on there, Noah Brown and Tay Martin, Colson Yankoff, and then all of the defensive players that I mentioned. This is my second 53-man roster prediction. I don't know if I'm going to have enough time to come out with one after the preseason game against the Ravens. But if you do have any interest in that, then let me know in the comment section, and I'll make sure to get that out for all of you guys. But above all else, go to the comment section. Let me know what your thoughts are on this. What do you think of only keeping 2 quarterbacks? Is that something that you think is feasible? I do have Colson Yankoff making the team for the 2nd straight season as an undrafted free agent. Do you think that spot could go to a Sheldon Day, or a Robert McDaniel, a Jean-Baptiste? Whatever your thoughts are, do go to the comment section. Let me know. Also, thoughts on the Noah Brown situation, because I feel like that is definitely one of the most interesting topics that has not been discussed enough throughout this offseason. But once again, guys, make sure you do hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it. I appreciate all of you being here tremendously. I might be back with a video later today, depending on what happens out in Ashburn at practice. But as always, I'll catch you in the next one. Have a great day.